and welcome to the Get Started video. In this video I'll be giving you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of Property Filter and showing you everything that you need to know to get yourself up and running. So what today's video is going to consist of, I'm going to firstly show you the fundamentals of Property Filter. So that's the blueprint that helped our members last year complete on 2,200 deals. And then I'll go into the community, and I've got three very important parts of the community that I want to make sure that you're aware of. And then I'll go into the Property Filter deal finding platform. I'll show you how to create a search of your own. And then I'll show you around some of the main features that you need to be aware of. Then I've got some tips and tricks to finish off, and I'll direct you to some videos that you can go to which will ultimately help you get to that next deal a lot quicker. And then if we do have any questions, you can pop them in the chat. So as you'll be aware, as part of your membership, you have access to two platforms, the deal finding platform and the community. And the reason why we have the community, and I guess one of the things we've spoken to our successful members, people who have completed on 20, 30, 40 deals, and one of the common themes we took from our conversations with them was, I guess, how much importance that they place on the resources and support that we provide in helping them to get to where they've got to today. So yeah, that's the community. I'll show you that in a second. And in terms of what is Property Filter, so it's the UK's highest rated platform to find deals, and we bring together hundreds of property related data all into one place. And in terms of the main benefit of using Property Filter, it's about finding motivated sellers and about your approach being targeted. So you're doing 10 times fewer viewings, but each of those viewings is 10 times more targeted. And also at Property Filter, we're, I guess, firm believers that deals are made, not found. And what I mean by that is, just because a property is on the market for X price doesn't mean it needs to be purchased at that price. And what we found is our members, because of the information they have available to them in Property Filter, are able to negotiate considerably larger discounts. So let's get into the community and show you around here. So the first thing I would suggest for you guys to do is, if you go into knowledge, and then in here we've got a short series of videos which I would suggest for you to start with. So this Property Filter blueprint. So these videos are from our CEO Guillaume, and it's about 20 minutes in total, and he's very briefly going through the blueprint of Property Filter and helping you to understand how it works and why it is the way it is. So I'd suggest for you to start there. And then once you're kind of familiar with the fundamentals of Property Filter, if you go into the Get Deals Accelerator, and again, you don't need to watch all of these videos at once, but let's say you've maybe struggling with an element of Property Filter. In here, there's different videos for different parts of the platform, and so over time, I would suggest for you to take a look at this. This folder certainly helped me to familiarise myself and make the most of Property Filter, and yeah, systemize and utilize the tool as, I guess, how it's been designed. So that is where I would suggest for you to start: the Property Filter blueprint and the Get Deals Accelerator. And then after that, one of the other parts of the community which is very useful is the facility to network. So on the left here we have the welcome and chat section. So in here, introduce yourself, tell people where you're investing, what you're looking for, how you can help people. And there's more than 1,000 people in here, and there's a very good chance that either someone can help you or you can help others. So I would certainly encourage you to do that. In the general discussion, if you have any property related questions whatsoever, pop them in here. If you're looking for maybe a recommendation, pop them in the Ask the Community section. And any wins that you've got, whether it be first viewing, first deal agreed, pop them into the Celebrate Your Win section. And then the deal exchange becomes available to you once you become a paid member. So in there you can then go on and sell deals in the deal exchange section. And then the final thing to show you within the community is the calls that you have available to you. So if we go to tailored support here on the left, here you can see the calendar of the calls available to our members. So as part of your trial, you get access to the Get Started call, which you're watching currently, which is every day, Monday through to Friday. And then you also have access to the Deal Finder Q&A call on a Tuesday and Thursday evening at 7 p.m. And that is held by Rhett, who is just off screen here to the right. And what's great about this call is, yes, you can learn by asking questions yourself, but even when you don't have questions, you can learn by the questions and the answers from other people's questions. So I certainly would encourage you to participate in some of those. Then once you become a paid member, you get access to these 3 calls here. Tuesday afternoon is the deal clinic call, where our members will bring a deal to the table and Rhett will help you stack it. Rhett is a bit of a wizard on Property Filter. He's currently buying a deal every 2 to 3 months, and some of these deals he's even finding in these calls with people like yourself. So certainly would encourage you to get involved in the deal clinic call. Momentum call on a Wednesday afternoon is where Guillaume, our CEO, prepares some pre-prepared content, and Deal Finders Corner on a Thursday is where we get an expert guest on, and you can actually find the backlog of those here. So if you go to resources and recordings, yes, there's a lot of videos here, so what I'd encourage you to do is take a bit of a less is more approach. So whatever issues you're currently having in property, I can guarantee that there'll be something that covers it here for you. So I would suggest not watching all of the videos, it's just taking a less is more approach and taking the actions that you're taking from those videos. So Deal Finders Corner, expert guests, you've got your Danny Inmans, your Simon Zucci's, etc., Saj Hussain, all here. There's a load of different topics. The momentum calls, again, there's a lot of gems to be had in the momentum calls, but where I would certainly encourage you to go to is the success stories. So these are interviews with our members who've had success on Property Filter, and they're talking about different nuances, tips and tricks that help them to get to where they are today and the success they've had on Property Filter. So I would certainly encourage you to take advantage of the success stories. So now I'm going to head into the deal finding platform and show you around here. So how to create a search of your own. So I am going to we'll go B1. And so here you've got a few different options when choosing your area. So the traditional Property Filter method would be to select postcode districts. So you press the plus icon to increase the number of districts available to select. So that is option 1. Option 2 is what you would be familiar with on Rightmove and Zoopla, etc., where you're selecting a postcode and then selecting a radius. And then option 3 is the draw an area function, and here you can just draw an area of your, again, you can be as creative as you like, and yeah, there you get the gist. So that is how you can do that. And now we're going to select view properties, and whilst instead of waiting for that to load, because we don't want to see all the properties, instead we want to see only the properties that are suitable for the strategy that we are focusing on. So I've selected the filters section just here on the left, and what we've got here on the left hand side is a variety of different templates. So let's say, for example, we're focusing on BRRs. What I'd encourage you to do is certainly use the templates, but it's also about understanding what the templates are actually searching for. So we can see here, I've hovered over it, it's searching for houses or bungalows with 4 bedrooms or less with a low EPC and motivated keywords. So I've selected that. So I would encourage you to, yes, use the templates, but then go in and have a look and amend the criteria to what you're looking for. So in this instance, maybe I'm not looking for flat, or I also want to maybe take a look at the EPC filters, whatever that may be. So if you open the advanced filters, you'll be able to understand that. So what I would encourage you to do is have maybe 1 or 2 lead generators where you're quite broad, and anything that could potentially be of interest to yourself would come into. But yeah, we would certainly encourage you to go and have a look at the different filters. And yes, it's called Property Filter, but if you do apply too many filters, what you'll find is you won't get much show up. So yeah, our guidance for you would be to maybe have 1 or 2 lead generators which are quite broad, and that anything that could potentially be of interest to yourself would come into this lead generator, and those that aren't, you can always remove. And then you could have 1 or 2 lead generators which are quite niched, quite focused. Maybe you're using keywords like we've got the needs refurb unmodernized, or you've even got the 20% below market value. So it's just about having maybe a few different lead generators, and I guess having a variety of different approaches in each of those. So if we select apply, that will take that search down. So now we've got all of the properties that meet this criteria, and what we need to do now is save that search. So we're pressing save search and then press confirm. Of course, we've got quite a large number of properties in this lead generator, so I certainly would encourage you to narrow down your search so you don't have to go through 720 properties. But what we can see here at the top is the motivated seller banner. So how this works, and these colours will always apply throughout Property Filter. So green will always indicate available, yellow will always indicate sold subject to contract, and red will always indicate removed. Then within each of those there is a further kind of segmentation. So these are all available properties that meet this criteria, and then these we will default show you. So this is the most motivated, back and reduced. It's a threefold, so it's properties that had a sale fall through, it's come back on the market, and the price has been reduced. And then these are properties that are only back on the market, properties that are only price reduced. These are properties that have been available since a long time, and you can dictate how many days this is set to. And these are new listings in the last 5 days, and again you can dictate that here. So if you select the access to filter settings, you can change how many days that is set to. So now we go into the sold subject contract. Again, these are all STC. These are STC since a long time. Again, you can dictate how many days this is set to. And what's great about the sold subject contract category is, as we know, roughly 1 in 3 sales fall through. So the longer a property remains in this category, the higher the chance that sale has to fall through. So our members are having great success sending letters to these guys, and as we can see here, I've changed the sort to show longest STC. So we can see this property here has been STC for 264 days. So the question is, would this vendor be becoming frustrated and motivated? And I would certainly say the answer to that question is yes. So our members, the letters that you could send to these guys is something along these lines. So congratulations on the sale of your property, and then letting them know that if something were to go wrong, you're actively trying to buy properties on that street or in that area, and then let's say that sale does fall through, I can guarantee that you'll be the first person that is called. So that is sold subject to contract. And then on the remove section, what I'm going to show you, the main thing to show you here is the withdrawn section. So these 89 properties, I know everyone loves off-market deals, and this is Property Filter's version of off-market deals. So these are 89 properties where a sale hasn't been agreed. However, it's no longer on the market, and that could be for a variety of different reasons. They may have actually let the property, their agent may have set the expectations not too well, and they've now parted ways. Some of them may no longer be looking to sell, but I can guarantee, again, similar to the long-time STC, you'll also be able to have some very, very strong conversations with some of these people from the withdrawn section as well. So that is that. I'm just going to go back into available and show you around here. So the green tick that we can see next to the address indicates that we've got the full address of the property. We've got the full address for about 80% of the properties on Property Filter. And one more thing I thought I'd show you. So if we go to sort, we can also filter it down even further. And one of my colleagues who has completed on 5 deals this year, his best friend is this below average price filter. So we can see it currently in the back and reduce, we've got 77 properties. I'm selecting back and reduce, it's narrowed it down further to 33 properties. And so what it's doing there is comparing the asking price with the average price of a property of that type in that postcode. We can see here this property is 14% below, 45% below, 23% below. So I thought I'd show you that, and there's certainly other motivation indicators that you can take advantage of as well. So let's go into one of the properties and show you around. So the first thing that I should hope your eyes are drawn to is the price and status history graph, and the colours that I mentioned before, the same colours apply here. So this property came on the market February last year, and then it had a sale agreed. That sale then sadly fell through. When they brought that property back onto the market, it was at almost a 30k reduction from what it was initially at, and then again they've struggled to sell, so they've reduced the price again a further 20k, and so yeah, now it's currently 50k below the initial asking price. The question is, would these guys be beginning to become motivated? And I would certainly suggest so. And again, I would really encourage you to use this price and status history graph, because it really paints a huge picture as to how motivated the vendor is and realistically what's going on with that sale. So this is where I would encourage you guys to look first. I'm also going to show you, so I'm not going to be able to go through everything, I'm just going to show you the few key things that are important for yourself right now. So if you're focusing on HMOs, here we have the HMO article format, and so what this is doing is getting all of the Article 4 areas across England and Wales. I do know that Birmingham is all Article 4 area, but yeah, you've got all of the Article 4 areas across England and Wales. And so I'm still staying on this first tab. We've also got this due diligence tab just here, so you can see the the EPC rating, and then this here means that it's if it was owned by a company, you would be able to go straight to company's house, see any of the properties they own, any charges at all. This says that it's not a leasehold property, so if you're focusing on maybe short leases, you would have that information just here. And then here we can see that there is a restrictive covenant on this property, so you can go there straight to the title deed, purchase the title deed, and see what that restricted covenant is. Okay, so now I'm going to go across to the second tab. So in here you've got your deal calculators. There's videos on the community that helps you to understand how the deal calculators work. So we've got templates for different strategies, so I would certainly encourage you guys to do that. And the maps, fairly straightforward. Let's say if there is you want to see what the street looks like, or you need to maybe validate an address where there is no door number, you can use the Google Street View map, which is here, and then you've got a few different other maps as well for you. So, and then into the fourth tab we have the area data. So I'm going to quickly go through the market live data tab just here. And so what this is doing is looking at the 141 3-bed terraced houses in the B23 postcode, and it's giving you some averages. So the estimated postcode yield is 6.57%. However, if you were to buy this property at asking price, the yield would be 8.62%. So, and then further down we can also see the average asking price for a 3-bed terrace in B23 is £210,000. It's taking an average of 70 days to find a buyer, and that sale is taking 140 days to complete. And then also looking at the 43 3-bed terrace houses in B23 that are on the market for rent. Average asking price £1,150, taking 36 days to find a tenant, and landlords have an average of 37 days of voids throughout the year. So what we would encourage you to do is, using these first 4 tabs, you need to decide whether the property deserves more of your time. And so what I mean by that is, here we've got a few different options on the property. So let's say this property, it's a hell yes, I like the property does deserve more of my time. I'm going to press send to pipeline. That is now removed from this lead generator. Let's say this property here, I know it's not of interest for myself. It's a hell no, I never want to see it again. I press hide and I don't need to see it again in this lead generator, so it's disappeared. However, we are conscious that in between the hell yes and the hell no, you have got some properties where maybe you might get a little bit of FOMO, you don't want to completely remove it. Maybe if the vendor was to become more motivated in the future, it may be of interest. So for that instance, we have wait until next change. Again, what happens here is, if a sale were to fall through or a price were to be reduced, it would then come back into your lead generator. And good practice with Property Filter is to go through and take an action on every single lead. And the reason why we do that, when you do get your lead generators down to 0, they're going to be a lot more easier to manage, and life just becomes a lot more sustainable and efficient, and the future you is going to thank you. So when you have your lead generators down to 0, it's going to look a little bit like this. Tomorrow you log in, and within seconds you know how many properties need your attention, because you'll see, instead of it being 774, you'll see 3 new properties, and then immediately you can decide whether that property is of interest to yourself. So now I'm going to go into the deal pipeline. And so this is your CRM system, and the aim here is to progress the properties from the first section further to the right. You can amend this process as well, so there's a video on the community which will help you to understand how that can be done. Let's go into the property we were just looking at, and I'll show you the rest of it. So let's say, for example, in this instance we're doing a BRR. It would be very helpful for us to know what the end value of that property could be once we've completed the work. So in the comparable section, yes, we can see the properties that are also available, STC removed, that meet the same criteria. But most importantly, it's the last sold data. So this information is taken from Land Registry, and we can see here 20 sales that have completed. But not only that, we can also see the condition the property was in when that sale completed. So just make sure your pop-ups are not blocked. What we can see here is, of course, the date of the sale and the price it sold for. But most importantly, it's the condition that property was in when that sale completed. And that's going to be very important when you're stacking your deals, because you need to be able to understand what you can achieve in that area. So here we can look at the different comparables, and I guess you'll want to use different comparables for different reasons. When you're speaking to a valuer, you'll want to use the higher comparables, and then when you're trying to negotiate with a vendor or an agent, you'll obviously want to use the lower comparables. So you have a choice, and you can use either or depending on what your reasoning is. Now I'm on the Send Letters tab, and in here what we can do is this is how you can send letters to vendors. You've got a number of different templates just here. Let's say in this instance I'm going to select back on the market, and I'm going to press generate, and what this is doing, it's got an integration with ChatGPT, and it's creating 4 professionally engineered succinct letters, one that you can send now, in 2 weeks, in 4 weeks, and 8 weeks. Here you can see the different copy for you, and the reason why we send a campaign, a series of letters rather than just one, is because we found that the response rate is considerably higher. And what I also thought it's good to mention is these letters, we treat them as lead magnets. So let's say, for example, our strategy is lease options. In this letter, we're not going to write, I would love to agree to purchase this property off you in 7 years' time, and I'll rent it off you in the meantime. Instead, we're just merely informing them that we have an interest in acquiring their property, because if you give them too much information, it reduces the chance of you getting a phone call. And not only that, once you do get that phone call, once you're on the phone to somebody, or once you're face to face, you're on a viewing, you can look into the whites of someone's eyes, you can then build rapport and then make the suggestion that you have. So it's using these letters as lead magnets with the sole focus of getting a phone call. I would certainly encourage you guys to consider sending letters, and how you can understand how to send letters within Property Filter is if we go to the knowledge section just here, and then if we select send DTV letters, I believe it's 15 minutes in total. It's very straightforward. You create the campaign within Property Filter, and you can just kind of forget about it, and we've got an integration with Stamp, so the letters go out automatically depending on when you've suggested for them to be sent. So I would certainly suggest for you guys to take advantage of that as well. So the last thing to show you here is how to use the CRM system itself. So I've just selected add an action on here. Let's say I've been on a viewing and I want to make some notes about how that viewing went, so that I can remember that in the future. Make any notes in here, whether it be the vendor would accept this price, or even as little as the agent that you met is a dog person and you want to keep that information so that you can build rapport in the future. Obviously, it really depends what information you want to include, but you can include that here. In the viewing date, you can integrate Property Filter with your calendar of choice. So for example, Google Calendar, you select tell us when the viewing is, and then it will come through to your Google Calendar. Any offers that have been made, pop them in here, press add, and then that way in the future you don't need to keep going to your emails to check how much that offer was that you submitted. And the most important one is reminders. So let's say I select in 2 weeks just here, I press add, and then what happens is in 2 weeks time it will say follow up today, and you'll get a small bell notification just here. That is the CRM system in a nutshell. I'll finish off with some tips and tricks for you. So the first one is about systemizing for tomorrow. So it's about taking an action on every single lead, getting those lead generators down to 0 like I mentioned, because ultimately it's going to save the future you a lot of time, and I guess it's a bit of delayed gratification, and it's going to make your life a lot easier. The next one is about less is more, and of course this can apply to so many elements of life. So that's less lead generators, which will then give you less overwhelm. You'll then have more clarity, and then it will lead to more deals. But it also applies to, instead of watching all of the videos, just watch some of them, watch less of them, and then take more action. And then the last one from me is about really not neglecting the community. I understand as entrepreneurs it's very easy to take the, I guess, learn by doing approach. But we've certainly found that the people who do participate in the calls you've got available to you and the resources that are available to you, they seem to get a lot more results. If you do have any questions at all, whether you're on the community or the platform, I would encourage you to take advantage of the chat function. So here on the bottom right hand corner, if we just tap that, press send us a message, and we're typically responding within 2 to 3 minutes. And yeah, we've got people manning the chat between the hours of 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. every day of the week. So I'd really encourage you guys to make sure you're not neglecting the community, so take advantage of what we've kind of created for you here, because we invest heavily into the support. And I'm also going to put in the description of this YouTube video a link to this document here, which shows you everything that you've got available to you, and it's got links to show you everything that you've got available as part of your membership. So hopefully there's been some value for you today. Like I said, if you have any questions, jump on one of the calls that you've got available to you, or drop us a message in the chat, and we are here to help. So yeah, good luck with everything, and we will catch you soon. Take care.